let's see what this video is about. It's titled The Male Body Image Crisis. I do think body dysmorphia is at an all-time high. Luckily, I suffer with a healthy amount of body dysmorphia, and I hope if I have a son one day, I hope he's bigger than the average human being, so he also suffers with a healthy amount of body dysmorphia. Anyways, let's jump right into this video.
In 2012, a man named Romario dos Santos Alves walked into a bodybuilding gym in Goiânia, Brazil. As he made his way through the gym, he noticed that many of the men working out had massive arms that were almost cartoon-like in size. Curious and interested in becoming as big as possible, he asked them what they did to build their arms, and that was when they introduced him to something called Synthol. This substance, a mixture of oil, alcohol, and lidocaine, is injected into the muscles to enlarge them without the need for extra exercise. Romario started injecting himself regularly and found the immediate results to be addicting.
To tell you all the truth, there's going to be a minority of people that's going to be as easily influenced as this guy. He approached someone, they told him about Synthol, he started injecting it. As simple as that.
But that added size didn't come without a price. After taking Synthol for under a year, small rocks started to form in his biceps due to the calcification of the muscle tissue in synthetic oil. He experienced tremendous daily pain and was told by his doctor that they were going to have to amputate his arms. Romario fell into a deep depression and even attempted to unalive himself before the procedure. But when he went in to get a CAT scan, he was graced with a fortunate stroke of luck. After reviewing the results, the doctor told him that they did not have to amputate his arms, but they would have to perform surgery to get rid of the calcification. Although Romario doesn't dabble with Synthol anymore, his desire to become a professional bodybuilder remains, and led him to explore other types of substances like horse tranquilizer.
Yo, how does this Romario guy thinks this even looks good? He looks deformed to me.
There are many other stories like Romario, of men who are unsatisfied with their physiques, going to extreme measures to appear like Greek gods or Marvel characters. But some of them don't end up being as lucky as he was. For the average person, this might seem incomprehensible. How could someone become so addicted to the idea of being big that they resort to drugs that they know will ruin their life? But the trend of pursuing an increasingly unattainable physique has begun to spread to a more vulnerable demographic. Young teenage boys. Bigorexia, a body dysmorphic disorder where an individual obsesses over their muscle mass, has reached a level of serious concern in the fitness industry. One study estimates that 1 in 10 bodybuilders are affected by bigorexia, and other studies have estimated that the prevalence of muscle dysphoria was 5.9% among college students and between 13.6% and 44% among male weightlifters. Why is there such a large gap between the actual numbers? Well, partly because it isn't being talked about enough, but also because it's very hard to identify. Most people with this condition appear outwardly healthy, but inside, they are dealing with a mental battle that can lead to severe depression and anxiety. How do I know? Because I was
men suffer in silence. I think that's probably why it's not talked about enough. And I think in society, it's almost like normalized for men to suffer in silence.
One of those men, too. So let's try to shine some light on this under-researched realm of body dysmorphia and explore why bigorexia is on the rise. In order to understand how we got here, we must first understand where this crisis started: the world of competitive bodybuilding. Bodybuilding as a sport and resistance training solely for the purpose of improving one's aesthetics wasn't popularized until the 1940s, when contests like Mr. America and Mr. Universe put more eyes on the scene. The contestants' physiques, though nothing crazy to our current generation, were seen as abnormally large during this time. But this level of impressive physique was about to be inflated forever with the
It's crazy how much physiques are inflated these days, because if this physique back then was to be posted on social media now, mad people would be like, dude, you barely been lifting. Physique inflation is real.
Introduction of one drug: steroids. Anabolic steroids are a synthetic derivative of testosterone designed to enhance the hormone's muscle-building properties. In the 1970s, bodybuilding reached what is known as the golden era and hit the mainstream through the likes of Arnold Schwarzenegger, Frank Zane, and Dorian Yates, all of whom used steroids regularly. It exposed an entire generation of fitness enthusiasts to a new level of physique, but it wouldn't be seen as a desirable or achievable level of physique for many years to come. You see, during this time...
Yeah, honestly, I remembered when I started lifting, I thought these physiques were disgusting. Now I'm like, it'd be cool to look like that, but in reality, I don't really want to look like that because I know I have to take steroids to look like that. I'm quite happy with my physique.
Bodybuilders were still seen as genetic freaks. On Muscle Beach, a public gym that most of the biggest bodybuilders in the scene went to, people would view the likes of Arnold and Frank as a spectacle. More than anything, outrageously huge bodybuilders clearly taking some kind of performance-enhancing drugs were like zoo animals. A fun thing to look at.
I wonder if back then people knew they were taking steroids. I have a feeling it wasn't talked about enough back then for people to be like, oh, he's not just a genetic freak, he's taking steroids on top of that. I don't know, y'all let me know.
But not something that most kids would look up to. But now that steroids were starting to hit the mainstream, the doors of opportunity to raise the standards of what was considered a great physique were wide open. The portrayal of masculinity in pop culture and other forms of media has always had a firm grip on young men. Before we know who we are or who we want to become, we have always looked to those ideals presented to us to give us direction. Usually these ideals offer more positives than negatives, but in the case of outwardly appearances, it's reaching the ends of extreme. What is considered a strong male physique in movies, for example, has evolved quite a bit over the years. In the 90s, one might have considered Brad Pitt in Fight Club to be absolutely jacked, but if we fast forward 7 years, we can see how our desire for more muscle reflected itself in the movie male physique. I remember seeing...
That is so true. Brad Pitt, I'm just being straight honest, he's skinny. Now the ideal superhero physique would be Thor. He has at least 30 more pounds than Brad Pitt. So it's crazy how much superhero physiques have been inflated as well.
Gerard Butler's physique in the movie 300 when it came out in 2006. I was only 9 years old at the time, but I do remember thinking that a body like that was completely unattainable, only reserved for dramatic depictions of life. Though he may have looked unbelievably good, Butler reported in interviews that he was working out for 6 hours a day, quote, ruining his body just to maintain that level of physique, a completely unrealistic lifestyle for the average person. Still, this was a movie where a lot of young men looked up to the main character.
Working out 6 hours a day, that's cap. There's no way. Maybe he was working out a lot, but 6 hours a day? Unless maybe like he meant like lifting weights plus cardio, but to be lifting weights and doing cardio for 6 hours, not too sure about that one. He maybe just exaggerated it. He probably did work out a lot, but it's exaggerated.
And many of them began working out in the hopes that they could one day look like Gerard Butler. How do you think an ideal like that affects the mental health of an adolescent boy? In extreme scenarios, they spend all their time lifting weights, revolving their life around the gym and eating healthy, disregarding any other areas of development. And when their efforts always come up short, their self-esteem plummets, never being satisfied with how they look, despite looking better than most kids their age. Through the early 2000s and then 2000s.
I do think a lot of guys who get into the gym these days, they almost like revolve their life around the gym. So the other areas within their life are not getting developed and they just focus on the gym just to have an average physique. So if you're new to the gym and you're watching this, please don't let your life revolve around the gym. Just make sure your life is getting developed in other areas of your life.
In 2010s, the ideal male physique would continue to grow in size. A study conducted in 2006, the same year 300 came out, concluded that action figures have become more muscular and larger over the past 25 years. Another piece of pop culture, James Bond, saw its most recent actor, Daniel Craig, boasting a much bulkier physique than Sean Connery's James Bond in the 1960s. Just about every form of media that had an attractive male star saw their muscular ideals grow in size as our culture continuously pushed the standard.
What's his name? I forgot his name, but the guy from Baywatch, his physique, I remember I saw that in the movies and I'm like, holy shit, I need to look like that. He looked insane for that movie. Again, what this guy is saying is true. Just like 3 years ago, I was getting fake natural accusations and currently guys on the internet are telling me I look small, which doesn't make sense because I'm actually bigger, but within the past 3 years, there's been so much physique inflation that I'm now considered small.
What is considered strong and beautiful? And a lot of these actors are accused of using steroids to enhance their physique and reach that standard. This is not necessarily a problem on its own. Actors want to be extremely dedicated to their roles, and steroids might allow them to do that without having too many side effects, so long as they keep the dose low and get off of it when filming is over. But many actors often lie about the drugs they are taking, making it seem like their physiques are attainable without any performance-enhancing drugs.
Did he juice? Did he take steroids?
No. I love my job and I love Wolverine. I gotta be careful what I say here, but I had been told anecdotally what the side effects are of that, and I was like, I don't love it that much.
Again, this perpetuates a
I don't understand why these guys in Hollywood don't talk about being on steroids. I don't know if their PR team usually tells them, hey, you can't talk about this stuff because you have young kids watching you, and if you talk about being on steroids, they're gonna influence them to be on it. That's probably the case. That's probably why they say, no, I don't take steroids. Which makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of kids these days who are getting easily influenced. So I think it's good for them to not say that they're on steroids, but we all know that they are.
Masculine ideal that is becoming increasingly more difficult to live up to. And when men find the masculine ideal is farther and farther from their reach, two things will happen. They will either go to extreme measures to get as close to that unrealistic ideal, taking dangerous supplements, ruining both their physical and mental health in the process, or they will give up on the idea of looking like that completely and tell themselves that they will never be good looking enough to deserve acknowledgement and validation. But there is one form of media that has wreaked more havoc and done more damage than any other forms of media that have existed in the past few decades. And that is
social media. I'm pretty sure he's gonna say that.
Unsurprisingly, social media. I just so happened to be getting into fitness and bodybuilding when I was in college in 2015, right when the first real fitness.
So let's say if body dysmorphia was on the rise and the scale was something like this, with the introduction of social media, it went more like this, honestly.
Influencers were blowing up. Guys like Sean Thompson and Christian Guzman became figures that I looked up to as a teenager because they were very relatable and transparent about what it took to look like them. I began setting up a workout routine that revolved around my studies and social life. When I'd go to the dining hall, I'd make sure to add a few extra slices of pork or chicken to my plate. And soon I was beginning to see my first glimpses of those noob gains, as they're called. The progress was addicting. It was the first time in my life where I felt like I had complete control over the results I was getting in something, and that
is so true. When you just get into lifting, those first couple years, the noob gains, you get so addicted to it, but unfortunately those noob gains fade away. So I could see guys hopping on after the noob gains slow down significantly because you get so addicted to the progress, and all of a sudden it looks like you're not progressing, which you are, but it's just slowed down significantly. So
positively translated into other areas of my life. I had more energy, I felt more confident in social settings, and my discipline was easier to call upon. But when the social media fitness industry really started gaining traction through mediums like Instagram, that's when my self-esteem started to take a dip again. Only this time, it stemmed from an expectation I could never reach. As the fitness industry continued to reach new heights in revenue every year, more and more teens were being exposed to the lifestyles of fitness addicts on social media. Extreme fat loss routines, how to bulk up fast, the one exercise that will blow up your...
Man, to tell you all the truth, my life actually revolved around the gym within like the first 2 years, which I don't regret, but I understand why guys get addicted to the gym.
Chest. These were the type of engaging titles that got clicks and drew the most attention. My fitness regimen began to evolve with it. I was now around 2 years into my bodybuilding journey, and I built a respectable physique for myself. And so, with the influence of these influencers, I started an Instagram account in the hopes of becoming a fitness figure myself. A lot of you still don't know this, but for several years, my entire brand and this YouTube channel revolved around fitness and bodybuilding content. With 2 social media accounts dedicated to this, it became ingrained into my identity. And because of that, everything I did had to be in alignment with my bodybuilding goals. At the same time I was growing my pages, an occurrence that was mainly only reserved for celebrities was growing in popularity amongst fitness influencers online. And this is when the fake natty epidemic really took the internet by storm. Ever since steroids became available, there's always been people who claim to be natural to appear more marketable, because when you look incredible, but you convince people you're natural, you feel more relatable to the average consumer. Like I said earlier,
That's so true. These guys take steroids, they call themselves natural to be relatable, and they also make more money because of it.
it makes them feel like they can reach the same level as you so long as they put in the same work. And many people see using steroids as a shortcut or cheating, making you generally less likable. Now that social media was so popular,
You still have to put in a lot of work if you take steroids, but it does make the process a lot easier. It also depends on your genetics, because some people don't respond as well as others. And then there's the ones who do respond really well. For them, it's like cheating. They just have to take steroids, go in the gym, do a few reps, or just smell the gym air, and they blow up.
this gave any average male the opportunity to take advantage of naive young boys and build a following online, so long as they had an impressive enough physique. A study titled Male Body Portrayals on Instagram, conducted in 2020, wanted to evaluate whether those with more muscular physiques received more likes and comments than those who look smaller.
They probably do, I believe that. I know if I was bigger, I would be getting a lot more engagement on social media. Just like if I'm leaner. Right now I'm cutting, and I know once I get leaner, my engagement is going to be so much higher on social media. It is what it is. That's the name of the game.
And they found that posts depicting men adhering to high levels of leanness and muscularity received significantly more engagement than those who didn't. Whoa, big fucking shocker. The guy who looks absolutely shredded is getting more likes than the thin, scrawny guy. But I needed to cite this study to emphasize what's about to come. Promoting your physique on social media is not inherently bad. When it's accompanied with some inspiration and good advice, it can actually be a huge force for good and influence people to pursue healthier lifestyles. The problem, which amplifies the rise of bigorexia, comes in when you have thousands of influencers promoting their physiques, which can only be attained using performance-enhancing drugs, that claim they are.
That's why you have to consume social media with a grain of salt, because just because someone has a great physique, that does not necessarily mean they're giving good advice. I would say these days, there's more people who have good physiques that's giving good advice, but you have to do your research. You gotta figure out who's giving good advice and who's not.
Natural just to sell more of their products and supplements. Yeah, bro, you can totally look like me. I haven't been shooting needles in my ass. All I've been doing is using my 10-week workout protocol that's linked in my bio. Oh, also what's in there is my brand new supplement line, comprised of a
Oh my God, so if I follow your 10-week program and take your supplements, I'm gonna look like you, I'm gonna purchase that shit. That's how lots of people react online, unfortunately.
few herbs mentioned in a Andrew Huberman podcast. That supplement is definitely the reason that I look like this, so you better buy it before it runs out.
That was a lie.
I can think of a good handful of guys that have made entire careers off of selling an unattainable physique in the form of useless supplements and workout programs. I'm very glad I never stooped so low so as to do anything of that sort, but I would be lying if I said I was totally immune to posting the type of pictures that fitness influencers post online. Being in the industry for as long as I was, I can tell you that there were a lot of tactics used to capture the absolute best picture of yourself. First, you'd only film yourself or take a picture when you had a real
Finding the right angle, right lighting, right pump, you would look so much better. I need to get better at that, honestly.
really nice pump after a workout. Then you'd ideally find some overhead lighting. This creates a stark contrast over your muscles and makes you look leaner and bigger. Then you position the camera at certain angles, such as from above to highlight your chest or at eye level to show off your entire physique. And for the final touch, you'd go into a photo editor and bump up the contrast and texture to make your muscles pop even more. I cannot even begin to tell you how hard I tried to get the perfect picture. It involved different lightings, and maybe I'd go into different rooms, and at the very extreme, if I knew that I was gonna have to post on social media that day, I would refrain from eating for a long time just so I looked a little bit more shredded than I usually do. While I never used any
The life of a social media influencer. I'm not gonna lie, I do some of these things, but that last thing he said, not eating so you look shredded, I haven't tried that one yet. Maybe I should.
Tools to enhance the look of my muscles, I did use filters that made me look more shredded. After all, I needed to get at least one perfect picture after a workout, or I'd feel like I was regressing and it'd take a big hit on my self-esteem. These perfect photos are omnipresent in the lives of young boys now. They're only seeing pictures of fitness influencers in a state in which they only look like that 1% of the time, or in some cases, they're seeing a completely fabricated version that doesn't even really exist. Then they have the audacity to lie about how they reached that level, causing huge mental health issues among young men who will always feel too small and undesirable. And the hostility now for people online who would have had what is considered to be a great physique a couple decades ago is insane. There are teenagers getting their self-esteem and confidence destroyed by posting their fitness results after a few years because they don't look.
Bro, as I said, if I have a boy in the future, he has to be bigger than the average human being so he doesn't suffer with body dysmorphia, or I just make sure he's not on social media at a young age.
Like the 1% that mostly get highlighted on social media. Or even if they aren't teenagers and just have a really good average physique, those guys are getting eaten up in the comments too. But I don't think this has just affected men's perception of what is considered a great physique. It's also affected women's perception too. I see a lot of women post pictures of celebrities with what they think is a dad bod, which is really just a dude in very good shape that isn't totally.
No, I think this girl is trolling. No way she thinks this is a dad bod. This is a physique of a natural that's been training for at least 6 years. He's huge. He just has some body fat. If he was to shred down, he would look insane. But I think she has to be trolling. She has to.
Shredded. Just a couple decades ago, this guy would have been considered an absolute monster. But now, dad bod. This checks out with the other scientific literature we have, as it's been shown that a greater total screen time was associated with greater symptoms of muscle dysphoria in both men and women. As a result,
hey, you all heard that. You all need to reduce your screen time so your body dysmorphia is not as bad.
in the past few years, we have now seen more and more stories of teenagers trying a bunch of different substances and drugs, either being indifferent or ignorant
To tell you all the truth, I think this was during COVID. I forgot the name of it, but I was close. It's not considered a SAM, but I was really close to taking it. I considered it. I remember I talked about it to, I think it was my ex-girlfriend at the time, or my girlfriend at the time. What's the name of that drug again? The one that increases your appetite. I forgot the name of it. Anyways, let's move on.
to their side effects, just so they can look like their favorite fake natty influencer. And part of this industry has turned into a melting pot of desperate, insecure teens who have no idea how badly their physical and mental health will be affected in the long run. Steroids and other hormone replacement therapies come with a whole host of side effects, including infertility, cardiovascular issues, and a greatly increased risk of premature death. But perhaps the worst part of all this is that many teenagers know the risks that come with taking these types of drugs, but they are so obsessed with achieving this certain
I do think presently steroids are being used more among kids, but it's also being talked about more, such as the side effects. So these kids know what could potentially happen to them if they take it.
body type that they will destroy their lives for a chance to potentially get there. When I was at my very biggest, around 222 pounds, I remember how much worse I felt on a daily basis. And this is without the use of any performance-enhancing drugs, which I've never used. It felt like my entire day was dedicated to eating. By the end of the night, I had to force feed myself just so I could be bigger. On days where my abs
I'd recommend guys to probably bulk to 18-20% max. And if you're higher than that, you shouldn't be bulking, bro.
didn't show as much, I might go so far as to do an extra workout when I was sore and increase my risk of injury just so my shirt fit a little tighter that day. I didn't sleep as well because I was eating so late, and this began to take a toll on my mental health. And if I missed a couple days at the gym because life got in the way or I went on vacation, I'd start getting anxious and worried that I was losing all my gains. I would look in the mirror and
I know of people who suffer from things like this, honestly. It could get really bad.
here would be this objectively muscular large man, but what I would see is an average to below average looking guy with a little bit of muscles on his body who didn't really deserve to be called a bodybuilder or an athlete or anything related to the fitness world. But nobody would
At best, I think, or I know people would think I just look athletic. It is what it is. I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm just an athletic guy with some muscle.
know this unless I spoke up about it, because I looked like a fit, strong dude. That is why bigorexia is so dangerous. And if we don't start to change the fitness culture and give young men more realistic ideal to live up to, we're only going to see more young men suffer from this disorder. Look, nobody can deny.
This is where I come in. I do think I am purposely going to try to push my content around training naturally, because there needs to be more people in the fitness industry that's showing these guys what's realistic for most people. I'm going to be one of those guys.
That young men's increasing interest in fitness and health comes with a ton of benefits. Like I explored in my last video, young people are doing less drugs, drinking less, and placing a heavy emphasis on different protocols to live longer and feel better. But like all things, it becomes a problem when it's taken to the extreme, and the current digital landscape of social media often rewards extremes over authenticity. While I no longer consider myself to be a fitness influencer, I'm still heavily invested in a fit lifestyle. Only now, I've cultivated a much healthier balance with it. My goal is no longer to be as big and muscular as I can, but rather have a fit and functional body. One that can lift heavy weights, yes, but also be athletic enough to sprint fast, run long distances, and be mobile and flexible. Does that mean I miss a workout?
Man, this guy is a good influence. You guys need to follow this guy, because what he just talked about, he's focusing on every area of being fit. I know I need to focus more on my cardio, and I will do that this year.
Workout every once in a while? Yes, but it doesn't take away from the progress I've made. If anything, it makes me make more.
Knowing that if you miss a workout, it's not the end of the world. Holy shit. I know some people, I definitely know there's many people out there, if they miss a workout, they feel like it's the end of the world. I'm losing out on progress. Oh my God, I'm gonna be so weak my next session. No.
More progress in the future because I am more well rested and I have a better workout. I've started to prioritize getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, and my energy levels are ironically way higher than when I was overexerting myself lifting weights.
Sleep is the best thing you could do for your gains. Not pre-workout, not eating. Sleep. Stop with all the pump products, the pre-workout and whatnot. Focus on your sleep, then you could focus on those other things.
And you know what the funniest part is? I'm 22 pounds down from my heaviest weight, but I personally feel like I look better than I ever have. And that's because my perception of my physique is no longer distorted by the media I consume. Okay, you know what? Sometimes it does come up. I'll check my abs in the mirror, make sure I'm still like shredded, but it's a lot better than it was back then. If you're struggling with the same body image issues I've struggled with in the past, I really recommend putting a bit of distance between you and the online fitness world.
Hey, or you could simply just unfollow all these guys that have unrealistic physiques. That will help your mental health so much more.
Guys almost never look the way they do in photos and videos in real life. You want to know what
Social media is just a highlight reel.
they actually look like? Here's me with a pump in good lighting, and here's me with no pump in bad lighting. They're almost incomparable, and you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people's physiques anyway, especially not the edited fake natty ones on social media. Everybody has their own genetic potential, and that means you might never reach what is genetically achievable for that guy you look up to online, even if they are a lifetime natural.
If you're new to my channel and you've seen this video, please follow him. Follow me as someone who's natural and likes showing their natural journey, and also likes helping others who are natural as well. That's it for today's YouTube video, and until next time, peace.